Welcome back to some more geometry. Today, we're talking about deductive reasoning. So, from the very beginning, we said that chapter 3 was about two things: inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning, or just reasoning in general. We spent a lot of time on inductive reasoning. We looked at how inductive reasoning is making assumptions based off patterns. We call those conjectures. And then from there, we can disprove our conjectures by a counterexample. We then looked at statements, how we have statements, and statements can be negated. So we got statements, it's just a sentence said. Whether it's true or false, who knows? And they can be negated, so that we can always find a statement that means the opposite of that, as well as compound statements. Now, if you remember compound statements, those are statements put together by the word and or. Okay, and or. If it's an and statement, it's a conjunction. And if it's a or statement, it's a disjunction. And then from there, we talked about how we have conditional statements, our if then. So our if implies our then. Those are our conditional statements. And then we can manipulate these conditional statements with our contrapositive, our inverse, and our converse. Okay, so all that, if you were in class today, that was all in the red letters. That's all part of the inductive reasoning. Remember, inductive reasoning is mostly true but can be false. There's some fallacy to inductive reasoning. Now, deductive reasoning is more factual. So let's look at this. So deductive reasoning starts with, it uses facts, rules, and definitions, and of course properties. Those are the four main components of deductive reasoning. We use those four things to ultimately reach a valid conclusion based off the given information. So they're going to give us some general statements, like a very generalized statement, and then we're going to be able to make conclusions from that. So the arguments only consider valid if it's impossible to prove false. That's why it's different with deductive, because inductive, we're making assumptions that which could be false. There could be some false about that. And then deductive reason, not so much. We try to make it very to the point, no assumptions, only facts. So there's two methods that we use today. We're going to use law of detachment, that's very straightforward, and law of syllogism. It's the shortcut between a much longer process. So let's look at that. We'll start with law of detachment. So law of detachment says that if P implies Q, if the whole statement is true, then P can only imply Q. P can only imply Q. P can't imply anything else, and Q can't imply P. The statement P statement, can only imply the Q statement. So, for example, this is our given statement right here. So we're going to write given, because that's how you see it in your homework. Given. So given information is, if a car is out of gas, that's our P statement, then that implies that it will not start. This is our Q statement. So they tell us, all right, so that's the given information. So somebody makes the statement, Sarah's car is out of gas. The only valid conclusion we can make is, since Sarah's car is out of gas, then Sarah's car will not start. That's a valid conclusion right there. Very good, very well, very nice. Now, what could we consider an invalid statement? Well, let's say they say, instead of saying Sarah's car is out of gas, they say Sarah's car will not start. They're telling us, hey, Sarah's car will not start. So they're asking us, what's a start? What's a valid conclusion we can make? We can't. There's no valid conclusion. No valid conclusion. A lot of people would say, well, then Sarah's car is out of gas. No, that is a possibility, but Sarah's car can have a dead battery. The spark plug cannot work. It could be an alternator issue. There's tons of other things that fall under that, but we cannot go from P to Q. That cannot happen. You cannot imply Q to P. So that's what it is. So for example, here's the one for you guys. So here's our given information. Let me change back. Given information is, if students pass the entrance exam, P, then they will be accepted into college. Our Q statement right there. So that's the information we know. So Letitia here, she passed the entrance exam. So what's the only valid conclusion we can make? Well, based off our given statement, the only thing that we can say is that Letitia here will be accepted into college. She will be accepted. Now, we can't say anything else past that. We can't say which college, if she's even going to go to college, but we do know, according to the given information, she will be accepted at least into college. So that's how law of detachment works. Now, like I did earlier right here, here's another example of an invalid statement. So this is our given information right here. Right here is our given. Our given states, if a beach is public, then it does not have lifeguards. Okay, well, somebody said, all right, so Bayview does not have lifeguard. Can that imply that Bayview is a public beach? Not necessarily. As we talked about in class, hey, if there's no lifeguard, the lifeguard could be on break. The lifeguard, it could be closed technically. So some beaches technically have a lifeguard, a private lifeguard, from 10 o'clock to about 8 o'clock at night. Some people can go before 10 o'clock. It's technically closed, so there's no lifeguard. And then go after 8 o'clock. It's technically closed, so there's no lifeguard. But doesn't mean that's a public beach. Trust me, I know I kind of been kicked out of a private beach before on accident because I just went on there. I say, oh, here's a beach. We're going to hang out. It was a little bit past 6. I think they recently closed. And what happened was one of the residents of that area it's their beach. She's like, hey, this is closed. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know beaches can close. She's like, yeah, this is a private area right here, so it's closed. It's not open anymore. Like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't tell her that I wasn't from there. I just like, oh, my bad. I didn't see that. So yeah, this is an invalid statement because you can't, not having a lifeguard cannot assume it's a public beach. All right, so that is law of detachment in a nutshell. Let's look at law of syllogism. Law of syllogism. So this is a long way, but it's a shortcut, if that makes sense. So let's talk about this so it makes more sense. So P implies Q. Okay, so some P statement implies Q, and then that same Q statement implies a different conclusion, an R statement. So if P implies Q and then Q implies R, then by law of syllogism, kind of like you're passing it on, the original P statement implies the final conclusion, the R statement here. So, for example, if you do not get enough sleep, then you will be tired. Okay, pretty valid. P, Q. And if you're tired, that's our Q statement from before, then you will not do well on the test. Okay, so by law of syllogism, so P implies Q, and of course Q implies R. So by law of syllogism, P, if you don't get enough sleep, then you will not do well on the test. So that's the law of syllogism works. It kind of takes the original hypothesis and ties it to the final conclusion. Even though there's multiple conclusions and hypotheses made along the way, it ultimately leads to the final thing. So we talk about if you didn't do your homework, you won't know what's on the test. If you do bad on the test, you won't pass the class. If you don't pass the class, you drop out. If you drop out, you end up being homeless. So we can say, by not doing your homework, you end up homeless. That's a perfect way to describe law of syllogism as well. So take a moment, pause, and then draw your own conclusion based off this right here. Hopefully you did pause. And if you didn't, let's kind of look at this. So if Zach Johnson's score is lower than the other golfers at the end of the tournament, so that's a long P statement, but it is a P statement, then he wins the match. He wins the tournament. Q. So even though right here, so if a golfer wins the Masters tournament, so even though it's talking about a specific one, it's still talking about tournament in general. So this is still a Q statement. Then he gets a green jacket. That's our final R. Well, because they have the same P to kind of tie the end of one is the beginning of the other one. That has to happen, by the way. Then we ourselves can conclude that. So if Zach Johnson, I'm gonna just shorthand that right there, score is lower, ... Then, what's the conclusion? He gets a green jacket. He gets a green jacket. So this is a perfectly good, well-made, logical conclusion based off the information that we have in the law of syllogism. So that's 3.3 in a nutshell. So hopefully that helps out. Until next time, bye.